You know, I don't know what it is, but the closer Derwin gets to retirement, the funnier he gets. We've been talking, of course it's not the right password. I can't multitask here. I can barely walk and breathe at the same time. Okay, fourth time's a charm. We've been talking about this whole encompassing character change, becoming new people, new creations, having new identities, and not just at this profession of faith level where we say the right things, where we're doing the religious routines and the right things in that regard, and we've got our behaviors modified. It's about total change of who we are. Not by anything we do, but by completely submitting to the influence and the relationship of Jesus Christ. That this influence, that this passionate power can actually influence and change who we are and how we think and how we approach life, people, situations. You know, and it dawned on me as we were worshiping that the life change, life transformation is not us being in a horrible situation, having the situation changed. It's us being in a horrible situation or good situation or whatever it may be, and us becoming more like Christ by Christ. I think far too often we have this approach, and it's a subconscious thing, it's bad theology, whatever it may be, but we approach faith like Jesus is some sort of genie to get us out of jail, that we're playing a game of Monopoly in life. Lord, if only you would stop the situation, if only things would ease up a little bit. I don't think, hear me out, that Jesus is so much concerned about my struggles. I think he's more concerned about who I am and who I'm becoming. I think that gets missed far too often. It was interesting last night. For those of you who don't know, one of my favorite part-time jobs that I do outside of this is I'm in a Beatles tribute band, which is quite fun. And I show up to the gig last night at Big Al's on 17th Ave, which has a bunch of collective, colorful people, which is kind of fun. And I get to the front door, and I'm holding it open, and I haven't brought any of my gear in. I'm just dressed in my street clothes. And there's this elderly lady with a walker. I'm like, can I get the door for you? She's like, oh, yeah, thanks. And she walks in, and somebody else gets the other door. I'm like, great. And what I thought was her son turns out to be her grandson, who's about 50 years old, coming in behind her, says, she's 101 years old. I'm like, that's amazing. She's more mobile than some people half her age. This is incredible. Anyway, so I introduced myself, and I think her name was May. For the life of me, I'll remember her face. The rest of my life, her name is gone. I apologize to her for that. And we start playing, and for the first 2.5 hours, she was at the front of the people, right in front of the stage, dancing. 101 years old, for 2.5 hours, did not sit down. And I thought of that, and I looked over, and the bass player saw her, and we kept acknowledging, we dedicated songs and publicly said stuff. But our bass player says, you know what, you look at her, this is the example of just having that moment of joy in the moment. I thought, well, it's kind of neat that you're using someone in a situation to kind of teach other people. That's exactly where we're going to go in our story this morning. Mark chapter 7, if you want to turn there real quick. We're going to get there. But this life transformation, Mark chapter 7, verse 24. I'll give you a chance to go there. It really does have an impact. Well, it's going to be behind me too, yeah. But some people like to read along. But have you ever had Jesus use a situation that may not be fun, lighthearted, and easy to teach other people? See, Mark chapter 7, verse 24 here, Jesus is using someone's example, but it is not fun for this person. This is not a situation where they say, oh, Lord, thank you so much that life is good and life is peachy keen and I'm so happy to come to you. It's someone coming to Christ in desperation, needing him to do something, and Jesus uses that situation to bring life change in other people. But that's not easy, and it's not desirable for us to suffer for the benefit of other people. But sometimes that's how God works, because if we are at our most vulnerable, we are at our most broken, and we come to Christ saying, I have no other option, I need you, and other people are watching, and he does so much more than what we thought he was going to do and why we came, that has impact on other people. And in a moment of vulnerability, one of the things that I've been struggling with too, on top of financial stuff, God's taking care of that, I'm starting to get this pressure and a little bit of anxiety and stress because May 6th is coming up very quickly, which is Derwin's last Sunday, which means, guess what? And I'm excited, and I'm so happy to be here. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of stress and anxiety when I'm trying to look at someone who's been my mentor for over a year and who's shown me so much of character, of passion, of what it means to seek Christ, bless and serve other people above himself, beyond himself. And I look at that and I think, God, if I can have half the character at Derwin's age that he does, I'm doing pretty good. And I look at him and I think, man, he's done so much for this community. Man, Laren and Derwin have been such a pillar, and they still are a pillar. They're not gone. Okay, this is a transition in life. Doesn't mean they're gone. But they've done so much. I think, man, those are impossible shoes to fill. They really are. So what I'm going to ask and need from you guys over the next little bit is grace. Because I will promise you, I will fail, I will disappoint, I will fall, I will stumble, but I will also be brought back up. I will also grow and learn. So as long as we can try to consciously not compare, because I can't. But that's the exact same way I approach ministry, actually. It's funny because it does not get me over well in a lot of pastor circles. It didn't get me over very well in college when they're trying to teach you how to prep a sermon, how to plan a ministry portfolio. And they said, well, write me a 10-page report on what that's going to look like. And I wrote my opening sentence, trust and seek Christ. But what does that mean? It means I don't know. And I'll tell you what, it's a very different approach for me because to a degree, I've got extreme ADD before it became ADHD as a kid, which has really impacted the way I approach learning and how I actually learn. I'm a very hands-on learner. You can teach me theory all day long. It probably won't stick. I need to be in it, be a part of it, get my hands messy with it. I also barely rank on the high-functioning autistic scale in certain ways. I've got certain tics, certain boundaries that prevent me from learning certain ways again. So when it comes to planning a sermon, I can't do it. And I mean, I can't. Sometimes memorization of certain things, I can't do it. I'm not able to do certain things in that way. So when it comes to approaching a sermon, I literally, every time I'm up here, say, okay, Lord, what do you got? And I have to wait. Sometimes he's very gracious and eases my nerves when it comes, Sunday afternoon or early Monday, and then I can start processing, meditating on it. But sometimes it doesn't come till Friday. I don't like that. But it's the same type of dependency when it comes to a ministry plan going forward. My plan is to pray and say, okay, Jesus, lead us to where you want us to go. Make us who you want us to be. Come and be with us and help us to be with you. It's that simple. Because I can have the best programs. We can have multi-million dollars worth of equipment that somebody else would have to donate. But it wouldn't make a lick of difference in who we are and who we are becoming. It's all about Jesus. And unless we start there, then everything else is just moot anyway, right? Mark chapter 7, 24th verse. Jesus got up and went away. I want you to picture this. Jesus has just done some amazing things, and now he gets up and goes away from there to the region of Tyre. And when he had entered a house, he wanted no one to know of it, yet he could not escape notice. Jesus right now is definitely showing a bit of humanity. He's like, okay, I need a break. And he goes to this region of non-Jewish people as a Jewish man who's been teaching and blessing and healing constantly and having people come to him to get something for so long. I need a break. So I'm going to try and get out of this and get out of this place where people want something from me so I can just take a breather and take 5 minutes for myself. And yet he could not escape notice, even in the non-Jewish places. But after hearing of him, a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately came and fell at his feet. All right, what's interesting about this is being a parent, a lot of people here can relate to this. When you have another life that depends on you to take care of it, and now you're at a point where you cannot fix something for them. It doesn't just say she had a daughter, it says a little daughter. It definitely resonates with me. The little daughter's not just sick, she's spiritually ill because she's possessed. Her life and her function right now is not under her own control or influence. But her mom knows enough to say, this man has something that she needs. Something I can't do for her, something I can't fix for her, but he can. And it doesn't just say that she came to him and asked for certain things. She came and threw herself before him. And I love this posture of absolute dependence upon Christ. That even when he's trying to get away, people say, I know what you need, but I know what my daughter needs. She's not coming on her own behalf saying, Lord, just make my situations better. She's saying, make my daughter whole. So she obviously gets what she needs to do, and she gets exactly what Jesus is here to do. Her faith is on display here. Now this is where it starts to take a turn, and I hope that this actually strikes a nerve with you, that it actually bothers you, because this should. Verse 26, now the woman was a Gentile, non-Jewish person, okay? Of the Syrophoenician race. Try saying that 10 times fast. She kept asking him to cast out the demon out of her daughter. She kept asking means it's not just once. It's probably not twice. She's persistent as she's thrown herself down before him. Do this. She needs you. My daughter needs you. My daughter needs you. And he was saying to her, now follow this. Let the children be satisfied first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. He's saying, I'm not here for you. This is not your time. I'm here for my children. I'm not here to serve the dogs. He's calling this woman and her needy child a dog. I heard this sermon preached a while ago, and this pastor dumbed it down, and it really bothered me. Oh no, the language translates to puppy. A cute, innocent little pet that you would have with you that actually didn't deserve your love and affection. No, he's calling them dogs. Dogs are not pets like this in this day and age. He's with common people 2,000 years ago when dogs were wild, they were ravenous, they were just, they got by, they weren't clean, they were filthy animals. He's saying, you and your daughter are filthy animals. Now, the problem with this is it should bother you that Jesus is kind of acting out of character right now. It's like, okay, Jesus, maybe a bit too much humanity on display right now. Let's turn the God dial up to 10 again, all right? But I can't tell you how many times I've seen this played out in different church circles, different Christian circles, where we profess this faith and this love and this total acceptance of Christ as you are, and people will come as they are, and yet we say, no, this is for the children, not for the dogs. And they're cast aside and rejected. Unfortunately, that's far too often the story for so many people. He's saying, you are an undeserving woman. You have an undeserving child. I'm here for the kids, not for the pets, not for the wild beasts. The problem was, he's in the company of disciples who not only they wouldn't be shocked by this, okay? This is culturally acceptable and normal for them. Jesus is a Jewish man outside Jewish territory in a non-Jewish place, speaking to a woman. Okay, this is 2 strikes against her. Because for the eyes of a Jewish man, you're here. You're the descendants of Abraham. God loves you. He's chosen you, and you're better than everybody else. Everybody else is here. And if you're a woman back in the day, you're even lower. And in some translations, it bothers me, from the other Gospels, you have the same account. And the disciples were so annoyed at her persistence of seeking after Christ for his daughter, they said, well, you just get her to shut up and go away. Send her away. Like, they were so annoyed that she was there that Jesus hears this language. He looks at her and he says, this is an opportunity, but not for the woman to teach my disciples a thing or two about character change, and you're going to see why in a minute. So he uses the language that they would actually understand, that they were actually thinking, and he speaks it on their behalf, and they say, finally, Jesus gets it. He's been listening. Send that dog of a woman back to her dog of a child to stop bothering us. Jesus says, okay, shoo. And he voices exactly what's coming from their motivation inside who they are. But that's not where the story ends. See, Jesus knew his disciples because the disciples were mostly a group of tradesmen. You know, I'm looking at Derwin and Ken. They're lucky this is all he said on their behalf. I've worked with tradesmen before. I've heard the language. I've seen the behavior. This is actually pretty tame. It's not nice, but it's pretty tame to some other things I've heard. Verse 28, this is interesting. But she answered. Now, I don't know if you've ever called a woman a dog publicly to humiliate her in front of your guy friends, but when she retorts, oh man, you can just imagine what's going to come from that. But she answered. She said to him, yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table are fed of the children's crumbs. And he said to her, and I can just imagine him looking at his disciples as he's speaking to her, because of this answer, because of your faith display, go, the demon is gone out of your daughter. And going back home, she found the child lying on the bed and the demon having left. What's interesting, she doesn't skip a beat. Yes, label me as you will. I'm not here for my own vanity. I'm not here for my own validation in your eyes. I'm here for my daughter. Sure, yeah, you want to feed the kids? That's right, go ahead. But the dogs get scraps too. I'm not here for a full portion. I don't want what they have. I want the grace that you can give that's enough for my kid. That's the approach. This woman who came, sought him out, even though he was in a moment of rest, trying to get away from everything, threw herself at his feet in an act of mercy, pleading for him to do something for her daughter, interceding on the need and behalf of her child, because nothing else could fix this kid except for Christ. And she says, no, go away. I'm here for the children, not the dogs. She says, fine, but even the dogs get a scrap. I'm here for that. I will not leave until you have done that. This tenacity in her faith and this humility. This is also the opportunity for the woman's faith to be on display, to teach the disciples, listen, your cultural biases and judgments have no place in the character transformation to become like me. She doesn't take offense. She owns the title, and she completely goes ahead with it. Give me the scraps then. That's enough. Your grace is enough. She's saying there's no limits to what you can do and who you can do it for. It's almost as if she's saying, you'll see in the quote behind me, look, mister, I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My daughter is suffering. All I need from you is a crumb or two. I know that will do the job, but I'm going to need it right now. A woman who's persistent, a woman who's there on behalf of her child. She's on mission, and she knows that the source of healing stands before her. He says no. She says, okay, I don't want all of that. I want what you're going to give me, and that's enough. You see, Jesus is not about rejecting her. He's about using the situation to bring about a teaching moment. But how often do we feel like we're coming to Christ, asking for something, and we feel almost humiliated and rejected ourselves too? Sometimes it's God's not answering my prayer. Sometimes it's, well, I don't feel him close to me. I don't know what it may be. But there's certain things in our life that we just feel like, why do I feel like I'm rejected? Like I'm not a part of the family. I'm not good enough. And I get that. There's going to be moments of strife, suffering. But Jesus isn't using this teaching moment just to bring about healing for her daughter. He's using her vulnerable situation, her dedication of coming to Christ regardless of the outcome, on behalf of the need of her child. What she's not focusing on is, oh Lord, use my situation to teach your group of merry men that follow you around and make them better. Neither do we focus on that. But what if, when we struggle, when we broke, when we can't fix it ourselves, God is blessing other people through our suffering as well? I mean, what if that is an actual possibility? What if that is what God is doing and we can't see it, but it's happening because other people are watching. Other people in our church family are watching us. They're saying, if only I had faith like that. If only I had character like that. If only I could become like that person, because they are becoming like Christ, and you are inspired to seek after your God more and more each and every day. And you start a life transformation movement in your life because you are simply seeking after Jesus, just like this person is. What if that is the greatest blessing that starts a revolution in our churches, in our families, through our non-Christian friends, through the broken who cannot fix things for themselves, and all of a sudden they see you going to Christ and they say, I'm going to try that out. I may be a dog to some people on the inside of the religious circles, but you know what? I just want a crumb. Jesus is enough. He is my full portion. You know, and one of the things, too, that Derwin's been really emphasizing is a lot of times people focus on this idea of being literal physical descendants of Abraham, and that's this entitlement attitude for a lot of the Jewish people. But when Jesus did on the cross, he made us all spiritual descendants of Abraham in the sense of we get to also share in Jesus' inheritance in the kingdom of God forever, not because we've earned it, because he's given it. We get given the right to be called children of God, to be with our dad, to spend time with him, to be influenced, to share our life and our stories and our struggles and our celebrations with him and other people in the family, to be influenced by that, to be changed in who we are, to be able to be given opportunities to have impact on other people in their journeys so that they may change in who they are. This is the work of God, and it's beautiful. I love the fact that Jesus used culturally the most outside person to teach a lesson to the insiders. He's so crafty in that way. Time after time in Scripture, we get this attitude. We see a group of people who become complacent almost at times. Not on purpose. I don't think the disciples were conceited intentionally. It's just they were a product of their environment. Their culture played an influence in who they were. And Jesus is taking the time to spend life with them to strip away the things that are not of him gently but very directly so that they can become more like Christ. It has nothing to do with men over women, because if I read my Bible, which I do in Genesis, men and women are created equally in the image of God. And yet, for whatever reason, our culture has dictated, well, men are a bit better for whatever reason, which is absolutely ludicrous. But Jesus is taking this journey of saying, I want to strip away your prejudices, your judgments, make you new. Not to condemn you, not to make you feel like you're worthless because you have these, but to show you love in spite of having these. To show you grace undeserved, to give you favor, to give you love and value. To walk through life with you, not so that you follow after religious expectation or guidelines, but that you walk with Jesus. If someone needs Christ, we need to not stand in the way. We need to stop setting barriers of who is saved, who is not, who can come to Christ, who cannot. They're beyond saving. And sometimes it's just so easy to do because of our cultural, our background, our family situations and inspirations, whatever it may be. But Jesus wants to work on us in all those ways to strip anything away that is not of him so we can become like Christ. This is interesting. When he gives an answer, when she says, even the dogs get the crumbs, Jesus says, because of this answer, what he doesn't say is because of your faith. He says, because of this answer. And when you look at the words he uses in the Greek there, he says, because of the logos, which means the words you speak. The word logos means word, principle, reasoning, and thought. Because of who you are in your approach, because of your words that you've spoken, because of the principles that are written on your heart, because of the reasoning in your mind and the thoughts that you had to come before me, your daughter is made well. It doesn't mean that she's deserved it, but he's displaying who she is as an example. Because of the way you've approached me, it doesn't mean that she's earned it, but because of the way you've approached me, she's held, she's healed, she's whole. He's putting on display her character as an example for his disciples. Listen, you see this? This is a great example of how I want you to approach me. He's saying that she has persistent efforts, refusing to go away until she gets what she came for. Her hopeful insight, refusing to believe even a tiny speck of grace isn't out of reach, and knowing that just a scrap can make the difference for her. And in the end, her trusting acceptance, her willingness to take Jesus at his word and journeying home alone to confirm her daughter's healing was all she needed. What's also interesting in the scriptures that the word logos that he uses here is also the descriptor of Christ himself. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus is the Word. And I'm not saying this, I'm going out on a limb here, take it or leave it, but the influence of Christ will have an influence of who we are and how we approach him. It's this continuous circle. We're connected to Him, seeking after Him. He'll influence us, change us, and make it more doable to connect and continue to work because He's doing it in us and for us and through us. It kind of connects to Romans chapter 8 here. So what can separate us? What can come between us and the love of God's anointed? Can troubles, hardships, persecution, hunger, poverty, danger, or even death? The answer is absolutely nothing. As the psalm says, on your behalf, our lives are endangered constantly. We are like sheep awaiting slaughter, but no matter what comes, we will also taste victory. We will always taste victory through Him who loved us. For I have every confidence that nothing, not death, life, heavenly messengers, dark spirits, the present, the future, spiritual powers, height, depth, nor any created thing can come between us and the love of God revealed in the anointed Jesus our Lord. That is our assurance, that nothing can come between us, nothing can come between anyone and Jesus Christ. But we need to stop setting up barriers for other people. We need to allow ourselves to be humbled and changed and stripped by Christ on a continuous basis, saying, Lord, if there's anything in me, the walls I've set up, the biases I've built up, the prejudices that live within me, tear them away, make me like you. Lord, if there's anything that is in me that is countercultural to the movement of the Spirit and the leading of Jesus Christ, anything in me that is preventing other people in my mind from even being able to deserve to come to you, take that away. Let your love be so powerful and so anointed and so evident that nothing can come between us or anyone else and you. Otherwise, what is the point? Jesus didn't die for people to put up barriers even in their minds. Jesus came so that all people may approach Him confidently. John 3:17, the point is that Jesus didn't come to the world to condemn it. He came to save it from itself. Who did He come to save? The world? Was it just the church? Was it the Jews? Everyone. Regardless of race, background, past, current behavior, past behavior, biases, prejudices, brokenness, pain, suffering, whatever that list may be, nothing can come between us or anyone else and the love of Christ. This woman's faith was that of desperate tenacity, and I think we need that for ourselves and on display for other people, that I may be desperate, but sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing to be completely dependent upon Christ. Whether it be with Melody and I and our finances right now, God knows, it's just money. But sometimes the stupid small things just completely consume me. Other times, I just feel such peace. I'm like, okay, Lord, you take it. Other times, I'm like, no, it's mine. It's a continuous battle, and it's a continuous challenge. It's a continuous growth pattern. It's going to take the rest of my life this side of eternity to even try to become. But it has nothing to do with my efforts. It has everything to do with me just saying, okay, Lord, come. I want you. Jesus' grace breaks and shatters cultural boundaries, biases, prejudices. The woman's faith was on display as an example and had a huge impact on the disciples. Because from those 12 people, post-resurrection, we see a movement of people becoming like Christ, demonstrating the love of Christ, not because their actions and behavior was modified, but because they were being influenced by Jesus to become like Him. And when that happens, the actions are just going to follow naturally. We need to stop worrying about our behavior and what we're going to do for Jesus and just keep saying, Lord, I want to be like you. Make me like you. Everything that we do is going to follow. And because they did that, they became this movement that took notice of first the Jewish people and then the Roman Empire who tried to squash them. But it was because of the persecution in the early days, mostly done by Saul and his group of bandits who thought they were serving God. It was because of that the constant dependency upon Christ they had to have because they were being chased, hunted, killed, rounded up, arrested, that they finally were forced out of their safe comfort zone and moved to other places. So sometimes in life, when things come against us, we need to not think of life transformation as, Lord, why aren't you changing situations around me? And start saying, Lord, change me in this situation. Because sometimes when Romans 8:28 says, and all things work for good, it doesn't mean that all things work for good for us. That is not the promise, but the promise of Jesus Christ is that I will never leave you or forsake you. Not I will give you wealth and benefit and a healthy life and you won't have anything to worry about. That is garbage. But the fact that Jesus says, I will be with you always, that's what we have to cling to. Although Jesus at first answers the Greek woman harshly, he ultimately responds to her request by healing her daughter. He demonstrates that God's loving presence has come to all people, not just to the Jews. Through Jesus, God is making all people, not just the chosen nation, clean and whole. I love that because that means there's hope for everybody. And when Paul says, I am the chief of sinners, and what he's saying is, if Jesus cares enough about me, to use me, to change me, and to lovingly be with me and allow me into his kingdom fold, his family, then there's hope for anybody. I think it's easy to compare ourselves to other people. Like, well, I'm not that bad. I mentioned this last week. Compared to this loser, oh my goodness, that person's going to hell. And we've all done it to a degree at times. Whether we mean to or not, we look at someone and say, that Dave, sometimes. Oof. Thank God for grace, am I right? I'm kidding, Dave. But you know what? I look at my own life and it's like, thank God for grace for me. And you know what? If Paul, a person who was instrumental in the persecution of the church, can be used, transformed by Christ to establish the church, there is hope for absolutely everybody. We need to not let anything come between other people and Christ, even in our own motivations and our minds. Lord, make us like you. So who in your life is hard to love? Make a mental note. Don't speak it out loud. That's weird. Who are we holding prejudices against? Let me ask it a bit more bluntly. Who do we hate? Ooh, it's harsh language. What is needed to change in us to love others and accept them? That's a very big blanket statement. I get that. But we need Jesus to make us new. We don't deserve grace, but we sure as heck desire it. I am not deserving, Lord, to be a part of your family. I'm not deserving to be a disciple. I don't want a full portionment like these other people are getting, but I want what you want to give to me, because that's enough. Just like the woman said, I can be a dog. If that's what you've called me to in your kingdom, that's fine. But even the dogs get crumbs. The biases and the cultural prejudices that come against me, the things that rage against you in life, sure, they may try to define me, but even those people get Jesus, because Jesus' grace is enough for all people. Lord, we thank you so much for your grace and your love and your acceptance, your desire to change who we are at a character level, Lord, not just to tick off a box on our Facebook status that says, follower of Christ, Jesus, whatever the case may be, Lord, but your desire to impact who we are, Lord, to walk with us, to bring us into such an intimate relationship, Lord God, with you that we cannot be helped but be changed to become like you. Send your Spirit down upon us this morning and every day that follows, Lord. And even when our struggles and our strife get so overbearing that we cannot handle it, let your grace be enough, Lord. Give us the crumbs from the table to sustain. Lord, let us not focus on our situations and ask that you would magically transform them and make them easier for us. But Lord, we ask that you would change us amidst the chaos in our situations, Lord. Calm the storm, absolutely, but more importantly, make us like you, Jesus, and let that be an example and a demonstration, Lord, of your goodness. Not how good we are, but how broken we are and how good you are in that to other people. Let us not put on a parade, Lord God. Let us not put on this example of misappropriation of trying to say that our self-righteousness is what makes us so great, but how righteous you are and how gracious you are amidst the times, especially because we don't deserve it. Let that be on display and seen and evident by the world. In Jesus' name.